In today's review, more RGB and even more flexing from a company that made history in the cooling department. But are these fans any good? The Scythe Kaze Flex RGB PWM is a fan that is nearly identical with other Scythe fans, particularly those that are part of the Kaze Flex series. The main differences between them two being of course the RGB implementation and a few subtle differences. Those I will get into as the review goes. First of all, these fans are available for a price of around 16 US dollars or 17 euros and have no less than 3 different versions, excluding those separate versions that are PWM compatible. But in this review, we are focusing on the top of the pack PWM version. While we have multiple variants of these fans available for review, we will focus our video on the version that has the PWM compatibility and has a minimum speed of 300 RPM and a maximum speed of 1800 RPM. Have no worries, the rest of the fans will be included in our testing graphs, but there is no point in filming every version available as they are pretty much the same in terms of design and looks. While the Scythe Kaze Flex RGB and the Kaze Flex fans in general are not really advertised as being a purpose-made fan as in high static pressure or airflow, these do have some design elements that make them good for radiator and heatsink usage. First of all, while many high static pressure fans have wide blades, the Scythe Kaze Flex RGB has medium-sized blades, but it has 11 of them. Yes, 11 impellers on each fan. This creates a decent amount of static pressure when spinning, and seeing this, it does not really surprise me at all to see these fans pre-installed on many of Scythe's air CPU coolers. In terms of accessories, don't expect much from these fans as you get 4 self-tapping metallic screws and a general Molex adapter which is not even sleeved. And that's it. Moving on, the space between the blades and the inner side of the frame is average at best. Again, more evidence that these fans can do both static pressure and airflow. However, what helps them out the most is the number of impellers available. Before we get into the RGB and how the fan performs, as per usual on this channel, I have a noise sample of the fan running at its maximum speed. This way we get to see if the fan is not only silent but if the bearing used makes any unwanted noises, a thing which can't be showcased with a simple decibel reading. Nevertheless, in this test, the fan used is the PWM version that has a maximum speed of 1800 RPM. While this fan will be audible at over 1800 RPM, thankfully the bearing is whisper silent with no clicking, ticking or other grinding noises that will appear, especially if you have the fan spinning at a low RPM such as 500 or 600 RPM. This is a great thing to have as the amount of fans I tested which were indeed silent but had an awful lot of bearing noises is too high for my liking. Other features on this fan include plenty of rubber padding which is of high quality, and I mean it. Both sides of each corner of the fan frame is covered in these thick rubber pads that will clip on into the plastic frame. This means one simple thing, that any vibrations generated by the fan will be stopped from passing onto the radiator, heatsink or your case, and thus a lower overall sound signature coming from your system will result. It doesn't sound like much, get it? It doesn't sound like much, but wait until you have a fan that doesn't have any rubber padding at all and you get to hear those sweet vibrations being passed on into your case, and let me tell you, it's not good. And what about the connectivity? Well, I'm glad to say that we got covered in this area, as these fans have plenty. First of all, there are 2 sets of cables. The one that is sleeved is the power cable, which comes into 2 variants, depending on what fan you get. The PWM fans have a 4-pin connector, while the other fans have a 3-pin connector. Both versions have this high quality and quite strong sleeving covering the cables, while also having the RGB cable that also has a splitter for attaching and passing the RGB signal to another fan. Speaking of the RGB cable, this is not an addressable RGB fan or cable, so it has 4 pins and not 3 pins. I am mentioning this so you don't get confused and buy the wrong thing, so pay attention. Now I can show you the actual measurements for the sound generated by each fan at its maximum speed. The top of the line Kaze Flex RGB fan reached a value of 47 decibels measured at 10 centimeters away from the system, spinning at a maximum speed of 1800 RPM. The middle of the pack Kaze Flex RGB model reached a maximum value of 42 decibels with a maximum speed of 1200 RPM, and the last fan to be tested is the lowest fan spinning in this review with a maximum speed of 800 RPM. This one reached a value of 38 decibels. All fans again were measured at 10 centimeters away from the system. When we talk about thermals, it is pretty obvious that the higher the rotational speed is, the better the overall performance it results. And in our case, the Kaze Flex RGB PWM reached a maximum temperature of 73 degrees Celsius with an ambient temperature of 20 degrees Celsius. This test was done by cooling an Intel i9-9900K CPU that was manually overclocked to 5 GHz. The rest of the fans show some lower performance numbers, especially the 800 RPM version, which is 4 degrees warmer than its fast spinning sibling. Nevertheless, this performance is good when we take into account the price and the design of these fans. And now I can show you the RGB side of things, and yes, these fans have a very good RGB implementation with the LEDs integrated inside the fan hub and towards the back of the motor. The white plates have a tinted texture that provide a better overall light and color diffusion and will create a vortex effect when reflecting the light on the rest of your system. It is also important to note that these fans are bright enough, but not to the point where the lights become an issue, as some fans will have too much brightness from the factory. The Scythe Kaze Flex RGB are a good fan series that are also affordable and offer a good build quality and a plug-and-play design which is compatible with all motherboard RGB control systems. As for what fan version you should buy, that is really up to you and what you want to use them for. Personally, I would always recommend you the highest spinning fan that is also PWM compatible. This way you get to choose whatever RPM you want, but also have a wider range of rotational speeds available. The Kaze Flex RGB are exactly what Scythe is known for. Good quality and performance at an affordable price. If you like this review, then you can perhaps consider subscribing for more and let me know down into the comment section what fans you use and why. Also, if you want to support me directly, then you have my Patreon page linked into the description and also my newly added subscriber star page, both linked into the description below. Until the next video, happy holidays!